morning. Welcome to class this morning for those of you who are here. Glad you're here. For those of you who are joining us online.
Did you turn your mic?
Uh-oh, I did not turn on my mic. We appreciate that you are here as well. Just wanted to take just a minute. There, that's better. Wanted to take just a minute and say just how grateful we are for all of the volunteers who have been here for the last couple of months for our crisis cold weather shelter. It takes so many volunteers for it to happen. And we are so grateful for all of the volunteers who have shown up to spend the night, to come in and clean in the mornings, take our laundry. Enterprise Laundry Service cleans all of the bedding and things for the shelter, for all of the shelters in the city of Springfield, free of charge, and we're very grateful for them. And the people who are here every morning to take the laundry in and bring clean laundry back. People who have donated food and donated warm clothes and things for the shelter. We're so grateful for that. Coming up this week, the temperatures are going to be so cold, and the crisis cold weather shelter for Springfield or for Unity will stay open. The guests who come on Wednesday night will be allowed to stay through Sunday morning. So the shelter is going to be open 24 hours because the temperatures are just going to be life-threatening. And so we will be here. We're going to need a lot of volunteers to come and stay throughout the day. We're going to need meals, 3 meals a day for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And so if you are able to do that, then please contact us at the church and let us know that you will be able to volunteer with us. And we appreciate it because we know the community. We know the neighbors, we know the community, our congregation here. We know that there are those of you who are watching from home who are going to step up and make this happen because you always do. And so we are so appreciative of that. So my computer is just being a little obstinate. We got a different computer and it's been really slow coming up. It decided it was going to update when I turned it back on when I got here. So we may or we may not have slide presentation. We'll just see how it goes. If not, that's okay. So we are doing the last in the series of Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. It's an amazing book. She also has a special on HBO Max that you can go. It's a 5-part series, and you can go to HBO Max and watch that and it's just absolutely incredible. During the series, we've talked about the language of emotion and how important it is to be able to actually identify what it is that you're feeling. They did a study, and people could identify 4 emotions: happy, sad, angry, and what was the third one? Happy, sad, angry.
It wasn't fear, was it?
Fear. Yeah, that was it. Happy, sad, angry, and fear. Those were the 4 emotions that people could actually identify in the moment what they were feeling. So, and there are so many other emotions that are underlying, especially with anger is the easiest emotion. And there's so many other emotions that are underlying what it is that we're actually feeling. We talked about being able to identify those feelings and what they are. We talked about comparison and how we're all hardwired to compare. We just do. But it's not trying not to compare ourselves to others. It's recognizing it when we are and deciding what it is that we're going to do with that. Okay, I realize that I'm comparing myself. Is this something that I really want to change? Is it something that I need to change? Or is this just a comparison I'm making, and I'm just going to go ahead and recognize that I'm doing it and go on and be okay with that? And today we're going to talk about comparison and empathy. Compassion about compassion and empathy. You know, Brene said that there are a lot of debates that have gone on over the last 5 to 7 years about compassion and empathy. And she says she feels like what the question that they're trying to answer is, how do we be with other people in service of them when people are struggling or suffering without taking on their suffering and their struggle?
You're up.
Oh, good. We'll see what happens here. And maybe. All right. Let's see. For those of you just getting here, my computer is being very, very slow today, so we may have a PowerPoint. I'm excited. So she feels like that's the question that they're asking. How do we be with other people in service of them when people are struggling and suffering without taking on their suffering and their struggling? And you know, she said there are people who have said, you know, they think, is empathy a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it something that, do we need more compassion and less empathy? And what she says, that she feels like compassion and empathy, that we need more of both of those in the world, and we need to see how they both work and how they work together. So that is what we're going to talk about, is compassion and empathy, and how they both work.
Sue, I have to say, from your classes before, I mean,
Will you grab the mic so that people at home can hear what you're saying?
You have to turn it on first.
I'm looking at Sue.
Turn it on.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, from your last class, from one of your previous classes on this, I have been able to identify different emotions, and it has been a real eye-opener. So I want to thank you so much, because this presentation and your bringing it forth has really been cool.
Thank
to
you.
be able to understand dishonor and despair and different things and to identify it. It's really an eye-opener, and I want to thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Elby. You know, it's so interesting because my grandson, he's 7, and they had the Christmas program, and you know, we were really disappointed because they could only have 3 people to go to it, and so his parents went, and they didn't want to have to try and choose between the grandparents, so none of the grandparents got to go. But his dad was saying, my son was saying, that he was so disappointed because all during the week, my grandson had gotten to use some of the special things, you know, ring the bells or do all of the fun little things, extra things that they get to do. And then the day of the presentation, that they had the program, he didn't get to do any of them. And you know, he looked really sad about that. And so having a conversation with him about, you know, because he said he felt sad, and having a conversation of it's disappointment. Was that expectation of, he had gotten to do it the whole time while they were practicing. And so he expected that he was going to be able to do it the day of the program. And then when he didn't, then that disappointment that he didn't get to do it, and recognizing that what he was feeling was disappointment. And he felt like maybe he hadn't done it well enough during the week, and that's why he didn't get to do it the day of the program. So again, identifying what it is that he was actually feeling. Okay, so maybe. All right, let's see if this will work. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and go, and if it comes up, it comes up. Okay, so comparison is a daily practice. Here we go.
You got it up, yeah.
Here's one of them. Is a daily practice, and empathy is a skill set That's one of the most powerful tools of compassion. The most effective approach to meaningful connection combines compassion with a specific type of empathy called cognitive empathy. And we're going to talk later about the different two types of empathy. We're going to talk about that. You can do it. Come on. All right. There we go. So the places we go with others, compassion, empathy, and a framework for meaningful connection.
Oh. Well,
Okay. So compassion.
I'm not going to mess with it.
They during the research they defined compassion as the daily practice of recognizing and accepting our shared humanity, so that we treat ourselves and others with loving kindness, and we take action in the face of suffering. And one thing that I want you to really look at in this definition is it's not just about treating others with compassion. The first thing they say is so that we treat ourselves and others with loving kindness and compassion, and we take action. So compassion is an action. It's not just something that we feel, it's something that we do. And we have to do something about the suffering and the struggle that we see as part of compassion. What are some of the things the actions that we take when we see suffering, someone suffering?
Comfort.
Comfort? How? Like,
Try to meet their needs, whatever they are.
okay. Somebody grab a mic so that if anybody, one of my favorite things is there you go, a hug. Oh my gosh, how many of you struggled during COVID with not being able to hug people? Oh my gosh, that just, I honestly felt when we started coming back in person, I struggled with coming back because I still, we were still not hugging, and it was hard for me to come back and not be able to hug people, because for me that's just what I do. It's my favorite thing, one of my favorite things. And we used to go to Missouri State and give out hugs to the kids and take the dogs so they could pet the dogs and hold signs of affirmation, and we still haven't been able to go back in person and do that, and I really miss that. So this is the whole part of love your neighbor as yourself. You have to show yourself that compassion. You have to love yourself, and before you're able to show that compassion and love someone else. Yes, John.
Yeah, I was going to say, just being with the person, present. When Dee did the dance, and when you really look a person in the eyes and are really connected, sometimes that is just very compassionate.
It is. It's an amazing experience when you take the time to just actually really look someone in the eye and share that connection. And it shows that we don't do it very often. So there is a quote from Pema Chodron, and I want you to just take a minute. If you want to just close your eyes and for a minute and really listen to this. I tried to find the audio, but I couldn't find the audio of her actually doing it. So Pema Chodron says, when we practice generating compassion, we can expect to experience our fear of pain. Compassion practice is daring. It involves learning to relax and allow ourselves to move gently toward what scares us In cultivating compassion, we draw from the wholeness of our experiences, our suffering, our empathy, as well as our cruelty and our terror. It has to be that way. Compassion is not the relationship between the healer and the wounded. It is a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. Wow, huh? That's pretty amazing.
Who said that?
Pema Chodron. So I'm going to read this one again. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. You know, this is something I think that I had to come to recognize when I worked inside the prison, is that shared humanity, you know, that all those years of training where it's us against them. And you have a tendency to put yourself here and you put them here so that you're in control of the situation. And recognizing that I couldn't be compassionate, and I could not, I can't think of the word, but I couldn't coincide with the compassion and the kindness and having to be in charge until I started coming here. And then I was able to recognize and bring that and see them as children of God and see them as equals and be able to be kind and be compassionate. But I also had to recognize, you know, it's there by the grace of God. You know, I had done things that could have landed me in jail or in prison. I had done that, and I just didn't get caught.
Yeah.
You know, Paul.
I just wanted to say, how many of us really run and hide from our own darkness? And I venture to say most of us do. And still, it's a struggle, I think, for us to really face the things that, you know, maybe we've done or said or thought or whatever it is. And I think that's why a lot of people have trouble going into compassion sometimes. You know, it's aspect of ourselves.
Also on the first thing that you read, the first part of it, what struck me was the phrase, or paraphrase, I'm going to paraphrase it, gently going into the pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not so easy to do.
No.
I mean, that's not how we usually experience it. Usually it's rather abrupt. And just to approach, because that's the first half of compassion. Until you're in touch with the pain and suffering, then you can't have a response.
Right. Right. And that's exactly it. Move gently toward what scares us. And I mean, how many of us are actually willing to move toward what scares us? You know, most of us, and myself included, are like, no, I'm going to go the other way, and I don't want to see it. I don't want to face it. It's scary, and so I'm going to do everything I can. You know, that's one of the things that we see so often. And our phones are great for letting us scroll around and not actually feel what we're feeling and feel that pain and face what scares us. It's really easy to just get lost in scrolling through your phone and not even think about it and put it away.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. In fact, you just stole my thunder right there, because I was going to talk about, and really it's not just the phones. any screen
Mhm.
just is so alluring, and so, I mean, look at what, I've got little 2-year-old grandkids that are like fascinated. You gotta watch it, how much screen time they have, because honestly, there's studies now where that really fouls up their neural pathways and doesn't let them grow,
Mhm.
because they aren't experiencing life thoroughly, like fully. It's just through one medium, and that's something that we have to be aware of, or we're going to have some bad ramifications.
Mhm. And you know, and I recognize, I mean, with parents, you know, one of the things we're going to talk about is judgment, and I recognize as parents, gosh, you know, they're tired. You get home and you're tired, and or you go someplace and your kid's acting up. We went to see the lights at the
Wilson Rutledge Farm.
no, it was at the gardens over there, the Japanese stroll gardens.
sure.
We went to see all the lights over there, and there was somebody had their kid in a wagon, and the kid's laying down looking at his phone, looking at, you know, it was like a 2-year-old, and the kid's laying down looking at his phone and watching a video, and all of this brilliance and all this amazement that was around it, you know, and it's like
Example.
and you know, but also I had to stop and go, okay, I have no idea what happened before the kid got here. You know, the kid may have been having a complete and total meltdown, and this was a way to at least get him in the door, and then maybe at some point the kid's going to notice something and look up and go, oh, wow, and put the phone down. Have no idea what had happened before that. You know, so it's trying to stay out of that judgment of, oh my gosh, what a terrible parent they, you know, for doing this, because I have no idea what's happening. So with the compassion is the relationship between, not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. I'm not here to rescue you or to take care of you. We have to move toward what scares us to be compassionate, not just our love and our empathy, but our cruelty that we're all capable of. And we have to be able to acknowledge that and recognize that and see that within ourselves. Only when we know our own darkness can we be present with the darkness of others. So for those of us who are codependent and those of us who we just want to fix things, you know, it's that recognition that that's not our job. We're not here to fix someone. The power of sitting with someone in the dark and showing them that that's okay, that they can be okay in the darkness, that's our job. Especially as parents, and I know now as a grandparent, you know, I just want to fix things for my kids. When my kids sitting in the dark and they're just crushed and they're just feeling this pain, and you just want to go in and fix it. You don't want to go in and flip on the light and say, hey, you know, let's go do this or let's go do that, and it's okay, and here, let's do this, and we just want to make it better. We want to make them feel better. When what we need to be allowing them to do is to be okay sitting in the dark. It's our job to allow them to sit in that pain and just feel it. And how hard is that? Especially as parents, how hard is that? Elby.
That's one of the things in I guess it would be the therapy part of the Avatar course, is to allow people to feel things, because if they stuff them, then they'll come back later and they will respond to things out of that darkness without knowing why they're responding to things. And until that is released, it's just like a cork that you keep pushing under the water, but you're never releasing it. So if we don't learn to allow people to release those feelings, then it pops back up, and it pops back up, and it pops back up. And it probably leads to school shootings and that kind of stuff because they've never learned how to deal with that in themselves and accept it as it's okay. It's okay to feel this way. We just don't have to stay there. And so, you know, that it's just so so important that we can do that.
Right. You know, I saw in a TV show once, it was a therapist and was talking to this guy, and he was just crying and had started to just cry. And he said, "Aren't you going to offer me a tissue?" And she said, "No, because that indicates that I want you to stop crying. I want you to wipe the tears away, and I want you to cry." You know, and I see, I had done it myself, and I try not to do that anymore. When we see someone crying, we want to comfort them, and we want to offer them a tissue. You know, I mean, unless their nose is running really bad, and then of course you want to give them a tissue. But if they're crying, let them cry. Just it interrupts it when you're crying and someone offers you a tissue, and you start wiping away. Then you're thinking about this, and you're not.
And the juxtaposition of a hug.
Exactly. And you come in and you hug someone because they're crying.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you come in and you hug them when you're crying. They're crying. Instead of just allowing them to feel what they're feeling. Clay has something. Thanks, John. John has become our mic man.
Thanks, John. John is now Mike.
No, Mike's over here.
Oh, okay.
That's the wrong way to spell it too. That's M-I-C. So anyway, when you talked about the crying thing, anybody who knows me knows that, like even my daughters, they say I'll cry at the drop of a hat, and I don't want to be. I've learned now. I had to break away from that from basically my father's influence. I only saw him cry once. That was when JFK was assassinated. So, you know, there's a strong predisposition and societal really push toward do not cry. I found it so cathartic, and I don't give a damn who sees me cry now. I know what good it's doing for me, and it goes back to that old saying that I learned in recovery: what other people think of me is none of my business. And I can benefit from crying. To stifle crying is really kind of a crime against your own self. It's as Elby was talking about, stuffing it. Stuffing is bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless it's Thanksgiving.
Okay. So being able to allow someone to have their pain. How many of us actually had parents who showed us their pain? One. We have one person that actually, wow, really? Two. Can you elaborate a little?
So I'm not sure that he did so intentionally, but my father's illnesses were so that, I mean, he couldn't help but express profound sadness and elation, and so it just happened, you know. So geez,
Rachel.
I also don't necessarily have a positive light to shed on it. I think that when we spend a lot of our time stifling, we end up out of touch with our own valve and we can't always be in control of when we get to express things. And so my parents had difficulty with regulation. And everything was on the table. They felt something and they felt it deeply and openly and loudly, and it was happening till it was over. And that's how I learned to express emotions. So I have to learn that I have a valve. I have to learn, you know, kind of the opposite of what other people do, to like release and let yourself be angry, let yourself cry. I have to like learn healthier, slower, more balanced and measured and intentional responses to things, because I learned extremes. Because there are a lot of ways to openly express yourself, but if you're not resolving something, if you're not being intentional with your expression, it's not helpful. It's chaotic. It's a great word for what it is.
So with that, it's to me it's like, yeah, hang on to that for a second. To me it that feels like the opposite of sitting with your pain.
Yes.
When it's not actually
You're a slave to your pain.
Pardon me?
You're a slave to your pain.
You're a slave to your pain, right?
It felt more than being a slave to it. It actually felt like rejection of it, because the shame and the guilt and the fear are so heavily associated with these negative emotions. Whether you feel them out loud or not, nobody likes anger.
Sure.
Nobody likes feeling like they let somebody down or disappointed or dropped the ball. No one likes feeling embarrassed. But not everyone can control that response. And so I think it was interesting to watch the tug of war that happened and the whiplash, because my parents were not just outwardly emotive all the time and then just forever moving on. You know, they went through the swings of shame and regression and, you know, introversion and introspection after the fact, because no one wants to be lived that way. And so that's difficult too, even in the midst of it, is that disconnection. Yeah, you have to be really in tune. Your higher self and yourself need to be really in tune with what those emotions are and how they're meant to be felt too, because sometimes your human, your person needs to cry and you let it out, but you don't get the resolve that you need because you didn't let the connection happen. You let yourself dissociate so that you could cry. And that's not productive.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
going off on tangents.
No,
that's so good.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. That's really good. You know, I find in myself, you know, some talking about recognizing emotion. My frustration with it for myself, because I put things off, and then I'm so frustrated with myself that I put things off, and that comes out as anger. And it's not anger. I'm suddenly now I'm overwhelmed because I've got all this stuff that I have to do and I haven't done it and I put it off, and I'm frustrated with myself and I'm disappointed in myself because I didn't take care of it the way I should have. But then that comes out. It looks like, if anybody saw me, it looks like anger. But that is so not what's actually happening. And being able, my wife is so good at saying, I'm not mad, I'm not angry at you. I've got stuff going on right here. This is my stuff. And here's what I'm feeling. And this is mine. And I don't want you to take this on because this is not about you. And so I'm trying to get much better at saying, this is not about you. This is my stuff that's happening. Yeah, it is, and she is so good about that. She is so good at that. Okay, and I love the fact that now as a grandparent, because I get it's like I get a second chance at being able to, when the kids are little, being able to do it differently and help them learn to sit in their pain and experience it and feel it. And do all of the things that I didn't get to do as a parent. And I look back and wish I had done differently. And so I love that. Okay, let's see. Let's go on to empathy. Empathy is a skill set you have to practice. You have to try it, mess it all up, say, didn't do that right, and then try it again. Empathy is a skill set of compassion, which is a choice every day. Understanding the inexplicable connection that we have when you hurt, I hurt. If you're not free, then none of us are free until we're all free, you know. And and I love this line. It says, and I get it. Empathy is saying, I get it. I don't get it because I've experienced it. I get it because I'm listening to you. It's not that I get it because I've experienced it. I get it because I'm listening to you. I'm here with you, walking side by side. And I think that was one of the things with the Black Lives Matter movement, that so many of us finally came to recognize, because we watched George Floyd get murdered right in front of us. We watched that. Hang on just a second. We watched that, and we couldn't ignore it anymore. It couldn't be just their pain and understand, and we had to start actually listening and going, oh my gosh, wow, what is happening? And then walk alongside them and say, I get it now. I'm finally listening. You know, I know they're going, finally. You know, it took this for you to finally wake up. We've been living this, and but you know, at least we're going to talk about at least here in a minute, but we got there. So yes.
Since you saw it, you learned from it. In case you're in a situation like that, you know how to deal with it. You won't end up screwing up in the first time. So since the second time you saw it, it make you realize in case you're in a position like that, you know how to react to it. Mm-hmm. That's my comment. You learn from it in case it happens again.
Right. And sometimes you screwed up the second time and the third time. You know, but it takes you less time to recognize that wait a minute, I need to do I need to do this. I need to learn. I need to do this differently. You know, one of the things that in Al-Anon they say is, I always heard them say is, it's not that I'm a slow learner, I'm just a fast forgetter. You know. So, Clay, did you have something?
I just said, ain't that the truth?
Yeah. Okay, so
Human nature.
So they define empathy as the most powerful tool of compassion. It is an emotional skill that allows us to understand what someone is experiencing and to reflect back that understanding. So there are two types of empathy, and there's cognitive empathy and affective empathy. Cognitive empathy means if you're sharing a story with me, then I'm trying to actually listen to you and understand it. I'm staying curious, and I'm trying to understand cognitively what it is that you're saying to me. It's how well an individual can perceive and understand the emotions of another person. Affective empathy is I'm taking on whatever emotion that you're giving to me. It's a kind of a slippery slope when we start doing that. Because in order to be truly empathetic, I have to know where I begin or where I end and where you begin. And if I don't, then that's that enmeshment. And then the next thing you know, we're both in trouble. We're both struggling because I have taken on that emotion that you're giving me. And so I can't be there with you and walk alongside you if I'm struggling in that same emotion that you're giving me. John?
I was going to say that's what empaths deal with most of the time because they just emotion reverberates within them, and that's why they sometimes want to avoid situations and seem very sensitive because they are, because it really does reverberate.
Right. And you have to be really careful with that, because we can't take off the lenses from how we see a situation based on our experiences, how we have experienced something similar to that. And so we're feeling that, but we're also projecting our own experience into the situation. And so what they're experiencing may not actually be what we feel like, what we think they're experiencing, based on what we are feeling. And so, we do that a lot. Have to really be careful with that with our grandson, and what we experienced growing up, based on what was happening around, and then watching him, and then we're trying to protect him from something and trying to ease his pain in the situation based on what we were feeling, and that may not.
Our situation, because our situation might be different, but doesn't mean we don't understand their emotion. So we can give them feedback, and if it helps, it helps. If it don't, then they got to grasp for somewhere else.
Right.
We got to hope our emotion and our feedback helps them.
Right. Right.
But everybody's experience is different. Some are similar, but.
And it is very tricky, especially if you're empathic, to really be able to recognize where you stop and where they begin, and share that emotion, but not get completely enmeshed with it.
I think that's one of the things. If we can understand the Unity teachings, we all have that spark of divinity in us, and if we look at them as being a powerful creator who is creating an experience, then we can acknowledge that they have the power to intuitively come out of it. We're looking at them from a different perspective, and it kind of puts that
The block between you guys?
Well, but it's not really, I mean, it appears to be a block, but because it's an appreciation of their power, it frees them to experience it without us falling into that trap.
Or we can give them feedback on it.
Right. We do give them feedback, but we can acknowledge that they are a powerful creator, and that they have all the ability that it takes to come to their own understanding. When we give them that, it gives them a freedom, because it's an emotional expansion that we're giving them that allows them to experience what they're experiencing.
That is such a great point, Elby, is allowing people to feel what they're feeling, and allowing them the opportunity to solve it themselves, to work through it themselves, to sit in it themselves. It's kind of the same thing with kids, is allowing them to have that experience and recognize that they are strong enough, that they can do it themselves, that they can feel it, that they can work through it and accomplish that themselves. We are so running out of time. Okay, so attributes of empathy. One of them is perspective taking, which this is, again, is that I can't take the lenses off of how I have seen things, but what I can do is listen to you. And one of the things that we talked about earlier is when someone tells you something, what do we need to do?
Listen.
We need to listen to them, and we need to believe them
Believe and benefit from it.
when they tell us something. And you know, that's something that when we're looking at things through our own lens, and they're telling us something, we have a tendency not to believe them, because we're like, well, that can't really be, because we're funneling it through our own experiences. But when someone tells us something, one of the things that we make sure we need to do is that we need to believe them when they tell us something. Staying out of judgment. And so Brené's research shows that they can predict judgment based on two variables. We always judge in the areas where we struggle with shame, and we pick people that are doing worse than us. Ooh, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. She gave the example of, you know, you're in the grocery store with your kids, and your kid's sitting there in the shopping cart, and they're all like this, and then you walk by somebody and who's throwing all the, you know, somebody with a kid who's throwing all of this stuff out of the grocery store, and you're like, or out of the cart, and you're like, mm-hmm. And then by aisle 7, you're wearing a Cheerios box and crying, you know. And so there is, but you stop and you think about it. In areas where you have judgment, stop and think about it. Because there's a shame, there's some kind of shame within you that's there, and that's bringing that judgment up. And so if you can stop and take a look at that. Yeah, Clay.
There's a thing in like one of the indexes about spirituality. Sorry, my throat's all messed up. And they say the term is contempt before investigation. And you know, we are all guilty of that. What I can recall in my own experience, long ago I was an aide in what we called then a behavioral, I don't remember the term exactly, but a class in the summer school class for kids that had behavioral problems.
The therapy for kids.
No, it wasn't therapy.
It wasn't?
No.
Counseling?
And, sir, please let me talk. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This young man in the class frightened me very badly out on the playground, because he was, for one, I knew that he was so severely impacted by his mental illness that he was, as a 6th grader, he was taking lithium. And he picked up a rock and he told me he was going to cave my head in with it. And, you know, you don't, at that moment, you're not really thinking, for me, I was thinking judgment. I was thinking, boy, his parents must have really did a horrible job on him and raising him. Then I met his parents. They couldn't have been more caring, compassionate, and tuned in. And they were just, you know, they were obviously overwhelmed, but we just assume things. And most of the time they're wrong. And we really have the cognition about what could be impacting. What if I have a friend who always does that. Like if I'll make a judgment and they'll say, oh, well, you know, so-and-so, they could have been just going through that. And I never think about the other person personally and it's a learned process.
Well, and we all do that. I mean, we all make up stories. We do that every day. You know, that's part of our DNA to keep us, you know, from that part of our brain that tries to keep us safe. Is we see something happening and we make up a story about it. And if we can remember and tell ourselves, okay, I'm making up a story that such and such, and is that true? Okay, recognizing emotion, and we had talked about that earlier, that understanding what it is that we're actually feeling, and that we can't know what someone else is feeling because we don't know their backstory. You know, we talked about that in earlier. We don't know their history. We don't know their backstory. And so, for me, what looks like anger and that you would assume was anger with me. That's not what's actually happening. So being curious and listening to and asking questions, and then believing people when they tell us what they're feeling. Communicating our emotions and checking in with that, and really asking yourself, what is this that I'm actually feeling? And practicing mindfulness. You know, the research in the literature that mindfulness just means paying attention. It's not about walking in someone else's shoes, because we can't really do that, because we don't know what they're experiencing. But it tells me the story, tell me the story of your journey in your shoes, and I'll believe you, and I'll stay curious, and I'll listen to what it is that you're saying. In the study of empathy and compassion, Brene says she came across the concept that helped her understand and solve how do you build the framework for meaningful connection. And so, is anyone familiar with the Buddhist concept of near enemy? Okay, so near enemy is, it's easy for us to think about the far enemy of things. Like the near enemy of love is hate. But what's really harder to understand is that near enemy. And what about the emotion that masquerades as the thing that we want to express, the things that we want to share, and the qualities that we have? They masquerade as them, but they completely and totally unravel connection. They're just the opposite. But it's easy to look and say, and see the far enemy of compassion is cruelty. You know, we recognize that. We see that when somebody's been cruel to us, that's easy to see. You know, I remember my son was really, really struggling, and he would say things just to hurt me. But I recognized he's hurting. And I recognize what he's saying is not true. He doesn't really believe that. He's just trying to hurt me. You know, and some people
see you as an scapegoat to get out.
Right. And so I recognize that. But what like the near enemy of pity, pity is the near enemy of compassion, where cruelty is the far enemy. I feel sorry for you. I'm not putting you as an equal, but I feel sorry for you. And the near enemy of empathy is sympathy. And stop and think that again, that I feel sorry for you, I feel bad for you. It's easy to look and see that the far enemy of compassion is cruelty. I'm trying to hurry here. On this, I'm running out of time. On the surface, the near enemy of emotions and experiences might look or even feel like connection, but ultimately they drive us to disconnection from ourselves and from each other. Without awareness, near enemies become the practices that fuel separation, rather than practices that reinforce the inexplicable connection of all people. And so, what do you think the near enemy of connection is?
Disconnect.
That would be the far enemy.
Indifference?
Control.
Oh, yeah.
I know, right?
Makes sense.
I know. Connection is the energy between us when we both feel, this is so, okay, I really want to emphasize this. Connection is the energy between us when we both feel seen, valued, and valued. Disconnection is the disruption of that, where we feel hurt, injured, invalidated, and the near enemy of connection is control. When you share something with me, instead of me being with you in the situation, I try to control the narrative of it. And I try to manage you and manage the situation. I get that, you know. Yeah, exactly. Because it's not, you're not allowing them, I can fix you. I have the answer. If somebody would just listen to me, I could fix their life, by golly. But that's not connection.
It almost seems like there's a more specific word rather than control for that, but I don't know what it is. That it's, because control is a lot of things. It could be, a lot of things, but this is a control
Free.
where you're
Desperate.
or you're saying, I understand what you're saying, and then doing something besides compassion that is manipulative.
Manipulative, yes. And control is manipulative. We see politicians that, man, you are absolutely certain that they have absolutely no empathy whatsoever, but they still feel like they're really connecting to the people who are following them. But what they're doing is they're taking that vulnerability that other people have shown, and then they're twisting it and using that to control them. That's why fear works so well. Is you stoke that fear, and then you come in and say, "I'm the one that can solve this. I can help you with this, and I can take care of this for you." But that's not empathy. That's control. Okay, empathy misses. We are not going to have time. We're not going to have time to do these. I have another class. I have another class that I'm doing in January. So I will finish this in January. Okay, so I'm going to run through these, and I'm going to leave you with this, just because I can't help it. Okay, I am going to show you this though, because I love this.
I love this.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, "I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed." And then we look and we say, "Hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone." Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, "I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me." Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
That's good.
Isn't that
Nice
wonderful?
job, bravo.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so and then I'm gonna leave you with this. It's Atlas of the Heart, Brene Brown, and I'm gonna leave you with this because it's adorable, and I can't help it. This is my granddaughter, who's going to be 1 next year, or next month.
What's your name?
Carmela. We were at Emily's graduation. She's just on her
Your
way.
daughter?
My granddaughter. Hang on a minute.
Remind me of Bam Bam with that little curly hair on the top of his head. Remind me of Bam Bam. You think so?
That's
Isn't that great?
So cute.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's a
Thank you
connection.
for sharing.
I know.
She's like, oh, and.
I know. It's like I can't help it.
Yeah.
So here's the basket. So to support our ministry of adult education. And for your information, if Springfield Public Schools are closed due to the weather, the church office will also be closed. And with the exception of the crisis cold weather shelter, all scheduled activities canceled. If the weather looks dicey over the weekend, please check the church's website or Unity's Facebook page to make sure that we'll be open. Don't forget to bring your blessing bags to church by Wednesday, December 21st. Or if you're having Amy shop for you, please be sure to pay by that. Neither Mat Makers nor the Abraham Hicks Meditation Group will meet the weekends of Christmas or New Year's. Do you miss old-time traditions like caroling? You can join Santa and his elves at 3 p.m. today for our last round of Santagrams. We would love to have you carol with us. If you're interested, see Brandy and she will give you the address list for today. The Board of Trustees meets December 19th. Guests are welcome to join at 6:30. Elections for the 3 board members will take place at the annual meeting January 22nd. Our beautiful candlelight service will be held on December 23rd at 7 p.m. Unless it's closed because of the other reason. If you find yourself at loose ends for the Christmas holidays, plan to join us for the Christmas dinner at 2 p.m. on December 25th. Please RSVP in the foyer how many will be in your party and what dish you will be bringing. The Burning Bowl ceremony on December 30th at 7 p.m. That's pretty cool. Ceremony. To close out 2022, please join us on New Year's Eve at 7 p.m. for a drum circle led by Neil Landau and Dee Dee Armour. January 1st, the Reverends McClellan Spirit Group is sponsoring a games day from 1 to 4 p.m. There will be cards and board games. Bring your own beverage and a snack for sharing.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
And so then we'll come around, make circle.